In this video, I'm going to give you 7 reasons why the iPhone 12 Pro Max is by far the best iPhone that Apple has ever made. And maybe a few of you have seen some of my previous videos kind of complaining about some of the problems with this phone. And while it does have its issues, I still love the phone. I want to make that clear that if I didn't love it, I would have returned it back when I had the chance, and I would have just stuck with my iPhone 10 until the next model came out. But I decided that the pros outweighed the cons, and I decided to keep the phone. And here are the 7 things that I love about it that I think make it the best iPhone ever. The first thing, and probably one of the most noticeable jumps and improvements that I have seen, is the battery life. The battery life on the iPhone 12 Pro Max is absolutely fabulous, guys. I came from the iPhone 10, and previous to that I had the 6, and previous to that I had the 5, and then the 4. The iPhone 4 was the first iPhone I ever owned back in 2010. The battery life has jumped leaps and bounds since then. Even from the 10 to the 12 Pro Max, the battery life is probably at least 5 times better. I can go the entire day using my phone to make videos like this one, do a FaceTime call, do regular phone calls, text messages, checking YouTube analytics, all the different things that I do on the phone, and still end the day with anywhere between 35 and 50% battery. That's pretty typical, actually. And ever since I've had the phone in November when it was brand new, I think I've only killed it from 100% to 0% absolutely dead in one day, probably like twice. And we're talking heavy usage, hours of shooting 4K video, on top of that using it as a regular phone as well. So you really have to put this phone through its paces to kill the battery. Otherwise, for pretty much everybody, you're going to be able to easily get through an entire day without ever having to charge the phone. And I think that's awesome. The iPhone 10 was probably the closest I ever had to this level of battery life prior to this. And even then, there was many times I had to charge the phone by like 6, 7 o'clock at night because I had already went through it, made the videos for the day, did my regular usage, and it just wasn't enough, unfortunately. But the 12 Pro Max blows every other previous iPhone out of the water in this department, and I have no shame in saying it. The next thing is the screen size and the vivid colors. Now, it is still a Retina display. They keep kind of changing the name. The latest version of the display is called the Super XDR display. It's just another fancy way of saying Retina display, I believe, because to be quite honest, I don't notice a huge difference between the iPhone screen on the iPhone 10 and the iPhone 12 Pro Max, but I do have to say it does feel a little bit brighter, and the shades of color are slightly different. And the way I noticed this was from actually using the YouTube Analytics app after they came out with the dark mode, and looking at them side by side, they do look different, and the actual shade of the black is different on the iPhone 12 Pro Max than it is on the 10, and that's how I started kind of noticing the subtle differences in color. So I feel like the color gamut on the iPhone 12 Pro Max is a little bit better, and the colors are just a little bit brighter and more vivid, and they pop. Not to mention the size of the screen as well. Anytime you want to watch a little video on the phone or pull up a picture and look at it in detail, all of those things make a big difference on this beautiful 6.7-inch display. And not too far off from that point is the premium design. I just love the design of this phone. When they first revealed it, instantly I thought back to the iPhone 5. It totally reminded me of that with the flat edges like that. But the feel of this phone feels super premium, right? You pay a premium price tag for this phone, and just the way that it feels in your hand, it feels like a $1,200 phone, That's how I look at it as somebody who is willing to spend this kind of money on the phone. I feel like I'm getting my money's worth before I ever even turn it on. And it's one of the reasons I don't use cell phone cases. It's not the main reason, but one of the reasons is because I just love feeling that premium design in my hand every day, and it's a good reminder of why I paid the big bucks for this phone and didn't buy the cheap plastic one that some other manufacturer makes. And I feel like it takes away the integrity of that. When you put it in a case, even though it is protective and very necessary for some people depending on how clumsy you are. But I feel like this is by far the best design that Apple has ever come up with in an iPhone, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where they go with it next. The camera quality. Obviously, there are some issues with the camera, mainly the lens flare. A lot of people have the issue where they can't take a good close-up shot when trying to take a nice picture with this camera. But other than those minor things, the camera is absolutely fantastic. This video you're watching right now is being shot on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and if you love the video quality, guess what, guys? I'm not using some fancy DSLR setup or anything like that. You're watching this shot on an iPhone 12 Pro Max. So if you like the quality of this video and how it looks, this is directly out of the phone. So there you go. Next up is the speed of the phone. This phone is incredibly fast. There hasn't been a single task that I could put this phone through so far that I have used it for that has slowed it down in any way, shape, or form. And I feel like the chips in these Apple devices have gotten so good and so efficient that it's hard to even imagine it even getting better than this. But really, guys, this is just amazing. Like, all the apps open and move noticeably faster than on the iPhone 10. And when you're coming from a 3 or 4-year-old device, you can easily notice the difference in the snappiness of this phone versus some of the older models. The next point is something that applies to pretty much the entire generation of the new iPhones, and that is the 5G connectivity. I haven't actually used this myself yet, so I can't say for sure how good the 5G connectivity is on these phones, but just the fact that it's available and a lot of carriers are starting to roll this out is a nice plus. I know the iPhone wasn't the first phone to ever introduce this. There were other 5G phones prior to Apple coming out with their version, but just the fact that it's available at no extra cost to you is a nice bonus. Now, the last reason why I think that the iPhone 12 Pro Max is the best phone that Apple's ever made is a very simple one, and not one a lot of people think about, but it actually has made a big difference for me and has saved me a little money. So let me tell you the story. I like listening to podcasts when I'm taking a shower. And when I used to do this with my iPhone 10, I used to blast it on max just from the speaker on the iPhone, and between the noise of the podcast and the noise of the water running in the shower, I could kind of barely hear it, and it was like right next to the shower on a little shelf I had. And with the iPhone 12 Pro Max, this is no longer a problem. I feel like the speakers are literally twice as loud as the iPhone 10, and that saved me a good couple $100 because I was going to buy one of those nice little Bose sound bars to put in the bathroom just for that reason, so I can listen to my podcast while I'm taking a shower. And now, because the iPhone 12 Pro Max has the best speakers I've ever heard in an iPhone, that's no longer necessary. And it's also great for just listening to audiobooks or watching YouTube videos, really anything you need to do. I would say not the best for listening to music just because you really want to feel the music when you listen to it. But for listening to anything that's just voices and talking, I think the speakers on the iPhone 12 Pro Max are perfect, and they really don't need to be any better than they are right now. And everybody should easily be able to hear what's being said through the speakers of this phone. Let me know down in the comments what's your favorite thing about the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and why don't you go ahead and check out my video right over here about the 12 Pro Max on some of the issues that I've had with it, and I'll see you guys over there.